Academy, Rick Green. Rick, great to have you on the show, sir.
David, my pleasure, man. I just enjoy listening to you. That was 100% every word spot on once again. Just fantastic. You're right on, brother.
Well, thank you. I'll pass along the credit to Anna Perez, and she gets paid per compliment, so she'll be happy. We'll be Venmoing her now. So look, as we all suspected, Rick, none of this is about solutions to mass shootings. This is a frequent problem. The American people are deceived time and time again by elected officials. So what do we do to send the message that we won't accept that? I mean, this is just, it happens all the time.
Well, we've got a fundamental problem with our values and our principles, David. And I'm going to sound like I'm kind of all over the map right here, but this is basically all of these things colliding. It's the nanny state colliding with this idea of toxic masculinity that has removed masculinity completely, combined with these political opportunists like John Cornyn and others, combined with civic ignorance. And so you put all that together, and here's what fuels it. I was driving by the other day, a major store, and it was one of their distribution plants, and the sign said, David, safety is our highest value. David, if our highest value is safety, that's how you end up with dozens of well-armed, supposedly well-trained police officers hiding out in the hallway while a madman is murdering children. And they don't do their job because safety is the highest value. I am so sick of being safe. And that's what all of this window dressing of this legislation, somehow it's going to make us safe. It's not. They're children right now. These legislators are acting like children living in fantasy land, as if somehow if they do red flag laws that actually can infringe upon law-abiding citizens, or they make it harder for a good guy to buy a gun, that's somehow going to stop the crazy guy. What we need to get back to is what I discovered 2 years ago after I was sick of several months of the pandemic making everybody be so safe that we shut down Western civilization. And we were flying home from a gun training, by the way, and my boys were flying one direction and I was flying the other. And I texted, normally I say, you get on the plane and you're separating with your family, you say, be safe. I wrote that on my text and then I went, I am sick of being safe. I deleted it and I said, be dangerous. Be dangerous to the enemy, dangerous to apathy, and an absolutely existential threat to tyranny. David, it's time for us to be dangerous. Men needs to understand, as Dr. Jordan Peterson communicates far better than I do, the importance of a man being dangerous to the enemy, dangerous to the bad guy. Gun violence can save lives when it's used on the perpetrator. But these people in Washington, D.C. don't understand that. They want to blame an inanimate object because they don't understand psychology. They don't understand the depravity of man. And all they care about is exactly what you said, having a press conference, patting each other on the back, acting like they've done something to save lives, when in fact this legislation will cost lives before it's over.
Rick Green, I had a few other questions to ask you, but that line, and it's not just a line, it's not even a mantra, it's a way of living, to instead of be safe, to be dangerous. Expand on that as to what that looks like. How does that play out in civil society here in America today? That's a fascinating line and really a way to live.
Well, real manhood is the same thing that Jesus taught us in terms of meekness. It's not weakness, it's strength under control. And the perfect example of this is Stephen Williford, my friend from Sutherland Springs. This guy went barefoot, didn't even put his shoes on, heard the shooting happening at the church next door, and grabs his AR-15, shoving rounds into his magazine as he's running across to this church to take on this crazy guy in Type 3 body armor, SWAT helmet, the whole 9 yards. And here's Williford with no protection, barefoot, running into the fight to save lives. And he stays in the fight until he stops the threat, and he saved dozens of lives that day. That's being dangerous in a true manhood kind of way. Not that women can't do it, because, by the way, it was a sheepdog with a ponytail in West Virginia the day after Uvalde, the day after the crazy guy had an hour and 20 minutes to murder children. The day after that in West Virginia, crazy guy comes in, wants to murder 40 people at a party, and a sheepdog with a ponytail takes her firearm out of her purse, ends the life of the bad guy, and that way the headline was the only dead person that day was the dirt bag. We need more headlines like that. Man or woman, either one, sheepdogs or sheepdogs with ponytails. Get training, get your firearm, and be prepared to stop the threat when it comes, and stop living in fantasy land thinking that just if you make it harder to get guns, somehow the bad guy's going to go, oh, well, I guess I won't kill anybody today. These people are foolish with the things that they're passing right now. We're going to have to take it on ourselves. Government's not going to save you from these things.
This is great, Rick. The question now becomes, what will it take to make big government-loving Republicans, meaning the ones, in other words, who still believe in the bureaucracy, What's it going to take for them to realize that these agencies we're giving power to, they're not on our side?
Right.
They've
just funded the ability for these people to pick on law-abiding citizens more. And if you don't believe that, I know you do, but the FBI and all these people have been running around for the last year and a half telling everybody the greatest threat in America are people like you, David, and me, patriots. The greatest threat in America are people that love the Constitution. So you know they're going to use these red flags to come after the good guys, not the bad guys. We have a two-tier justice system right now, and the worst thing we can do is give billions more dollars to these alphabet soup agencies that aren't even constitutional in the first place. This isn't a federal responsibility. This ought to be at the state and local level. And long story short, David, the answer is we have to put more pressure on the politicians. We have to run for office. We have to get our friends and family from our churches and from our neighborhoods running for school board, city council, state legislature, and yes, Congress. And I think we're going to get some good new members of Congress this year that'll put the pressure on, but it's going to take time.
Yeah.
And we ourselves have to know these things. We have to study the Constitution ourselves to know the real history of the Second Amendment and why it's called the Palladium, the protector of all of our other liberties.
Let me ask you one last question, because John Cornyn, I've known John Cornyn for years. We go back Cornyn and I go back almost 20 years, but about 15 years ago, John Cornyn was right on the leading edge. I mean, he was like, frontline soldier. He was a judge. He was out there in a lot of stuff. And now it's like he's getting booed at the Texas GOP convention. So to me, he's a microcosm of what's gone on here. Here's my point of all of this. Term limits. He's been there forever. The Navy bean soup. It may be good. It's too much, brother. It's too much. They got to get out of D.C. because they want to become Dick Lugar. That's the problem. They want to become statesmen. And so all of a sudden they fall in line with the Wikipedia and the New York Times entry. Anyhow, go ahead.
You read my mind. You absolutely read my mind. Look, 20 years ago, I was working with John Cornyn when he was Attorney General of Texas, and I was a legislator. We were doing all kinds of good legislation. He was great back then, and he was great for a little while in D.C. But it's the swamp, my friend. The swamp chews up the best of the best. You cannot spend half your life in Washington, D.C. without it affecting you. I'm a big proponent of term limits for exactly what you just said. In fact, I've watched my own friends in the legislature become part of the problem because they just get caught up in the swamp.
Yeah.
They'll serve for 10 years and then come home. Let someone else go back in there. It takes fresh blood and people with a fresh perspective and new energy to be able to take on the swamp.
30 seconds here. Why are these bills so long to begin with? I mean, this isn't like the 1800s. I mean, we have more concise ways of speaking and writing. Is there a rule that says we can't change the verbose nature of these bills? My gosh, do you realize how much saliva I spit during that monologue?
It's so they can hide all their nonsense and they can give all this power to these agencies instead of the legislature itself being held accountable. Man, we just need some common sense people. I'm so sick of all these ivory tower. They think they know better than us. They think they're better parents than us. They can tell us how to raise our kids, how to run our businesses, and how to take care of our health care. We don't need them to tell us that. What we need them to do is protect our border, protect our national security, do the very few things the Constitution gives them the power to do, and then get the heck out of our way.
Rick Green, great to see you.
Thank you, David.